Thanks so much for joining us here on the CBN News Channel. I'm Ephraim Graham. Gay activists say Wednesday's Supreme Court rulings are just the beginning. America's High Court struck down part of the Defense of Marriage Act and refused to weigh in on California's Proposition 8, clearing that state for gay marriage. But the court did not make same-sex marriage a fundamental right, and that's why the battle is far from over. Paul Strand reports now from the Supreme Court.
Gay individuals and groups, as well as their lawyers who fought against DOMA and Proposition 8, now say the next step is to battle nationwide for legalized same-sex marriage everywhere.
We cannot forget our LGBT brothers and sisters that are in states that still discriminate against them, and we will not allow it.
Within 5 years, we will bring marriage equality to all 50 states in this vast country.
Marriage equality back in California, 40% of the population of the United States is covered by marriage equality.
The lawyers battling Proposition 8 say it's effectively dead because the justices ruled those defending it had no standing to defend it.
They said the proponents have no concrete injury. They cannot point to anything that harms them because these two loving couples and couples like them throughout California are now going to be able to get married.
Those on the other side weren't necessarily admitting defeat on Prop 8. They say at most the High Court has thrown California and gay marriage into somewhat of a legal limbo.
We remain committed to the continued enforcement of Proposition 8 until there is a statewide order saying otherwise.
Even as it wiped DOMA out, the court specifically did not say states have to legalize gay marriage. But its two rulings are big boosts to the gay marriage momentum. Supporters of traditional marriage certainly have a beef with what the Supreme Court has done here. They're saying, how can 5 justices decide these crucial questions about marriage when the voters and the legislators in 38 states have decided differently? One of the biggest problems with gay marriage is that in most states where it's become legal, Christians who stand up too clearly for traditional marriage end up getting bashed, sometimes sued. Could that now happen nationwide with DOMA's defeat, especially with the way the justices denigrated opponents of gay marriage?
Now that the majority said that laws defining marriage between one man and one woman are not supported by any rational basis, that they are driven by either ignorance or hostility, I fear that we're going to see a flood of lawsuits where that'll be the lead for the plaintiffs right out at the gate.
Reverend Rob Schenck says believers need to get ready.
The script has already been written. Christians are angry, mean, bigoted, narrow-minded, ugly people. That's the stereotype. I think we have to do what we can to defeat that stereotype.
All sides on this issue say what the court has done here is important, but it certainly does not decide the question of gay marriage for all of America. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
Paul, thank you. Changes are already starting to happen on the federal level. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says the Pentagon is working to extend benefits to the spouses of gay military members as soon as possible, including health care, housing, and other federal benefits. The plan would also allow the spouses of gay military members to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery. The plan is scheduled to go into effect October 1st. The Pentagon estimates there are 18,000 same-sex couples in the military. While Proposition 8 supporters say they will continue to fight for traditional marriage, they argue another issue is at stake. The court ignored the will of the people, a dangerous event for any democracy. Same-sex marriage is essentially legal now in California, and the media is ablaze with celebrating supporters. But backers of Proposition 8 say the Supreme Court has set a dangerous precedent, where the will of the voters no longer matters.
The decision of marriage should be left to the people. When the people validly enact a law to limit marriage to one man and one woman, it should be the people who decide whether that law should be reversed.
My initial reaction was, it's a new kind of tyranny. It's where the courts advocate social justice over social structure and social traditions and standards.
Even Justice Kennedy, who voted to strike down DOMA, sided with California voters who approved Prop 8, stating, quote, "The essence of democracy is that the right to make law rests in the people and flows to the government, not the other way around. The California initiative process embodies these principles and has done so for over a century."
If someone doesn't like a proposition that's passed in the state of California, arguably all they would have to do is find one judge, one federal judge, to declare it unconstitutional, and then get a wink and a nod from the Attorney General and the governor, and it's over. And I think that's a terrible, terrible situation to have for the voters to have their votes count and to have their votes respected in the proper system.
It will take at least 25 days before the Supreme Court's ruling becomes official and gay marriages resume in California. If supporters of Proposition 8 ask for a rehearing, then gay marriages may still be barred beyond the 25-day period. And joining us now from Washington, D.C. in our bureau is Thomas Peters of the National Organization for Marriage. Thomas, what does the DOMA ruling mean for the states, especially for those that have voted to defend traditional marriage?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that it was a split ruling. The court did choose to strike down Section 3, but it actually arguably strengthened Section 2, which says that states that don't have redefined marriage can maintain their marriage laws against states that have redefined marriage.
Indeed, the court has not established a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. Is this good news?
I think that's a hugely important point to be making. Gay marriage activists did not get what they wanted here. They came into this court saying that in both cases the court would establish a fundamental right to redefine marriage in our Constitution, and the court refused to do so. I think we're going to see in the future that has huge ramifications for the ability of pro-marriage people to defend marriage and state laws.
Thomas, I want to raise another point here. In the Proposition 8 decision, it appears that the voices of 7 million voters who wanted to ban gay marriage have been dismissed. Do you see it that way?
I agree with you. I think it's truly outrageous. I wrote a piece about this yesterday. It's absolutely extraordinary that the Supreme Court would rule that the very people who raised money to put a measure on the ballot, who fought hard to pass the ballot, aren't allowed to defend that law in court when an activist judge tries to strike it down. This has ramifications far beyond the marriage debate, and I think it reminds us that there's more at stake in the marriage debate than simply marriage. This is a fundamental pillar of our democracy, and I think it deserves more attention.
Now, we are being told by the president and others that gay marriage will not be forced on churches. But how will these rulings affect Christians who may disagree with gay marriage out in public?
Well, we have to start with this important point that President Obama has a very, very narrow view of religious freedom, which is not what our founding fathers guaranteed. By saying that you're not going to be forcing pastors to do a same-sex marriage, that implies that Christians only have their rights when they're within their church walls. Christians have the full First Amendment rights to stand for marriage in the public square, in their businesses, out in their communities, in their neighborhoods, in politics. And so I think it's a very dangerous thing to say, well, we're not going to come into your churches, we're just going to force you to keep your faith in them. That's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Real quickly, won't the debate eventually leave the state level again and head back to the Supreme Court, since gay activists argue they haven't achieved full equality?
Well, I think that the legal battle is not over by any means, and I think that these bad rulings the Supreme Court laid down yesterday will ultimately have to be revisited and overturned. So yes, that's part of our legal strategy moving forward.
I want to talk to you more about the media and gay activists real quickly here. The media and gay activists say this is all about equality and that anyone should be allowed to love whomever they want. Is this a valid argument?
Well, there's more involved in marriage than simply love. Government is not in the love business. I don't need the government to tell me who I love or who my best friend is or what my favorite flavor of ice cream is. Why government is involved in the marriage business is because marriage is that unique relationship which could result in a child, and that child deserves to have a mother and a father. And so arguments about equality and love, while interesting and important, as soon as you define the terms, you see that marriage actually values the equal contributions of mothers and fathers. It's as simple as that.
All right. Thomas Peters of the National Organization for Marriage, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The IRS Tea Party targeting scandal is not dead just yet. The chief of the Internal Revenue Service is facing tough questions from the House Ways and Means Committee today. This is Danny Werfel's third appearance before Congress since being appointed to lead the troubled agency last month. It comes amid claims the IRS also targeted progressive groups that sought tax-exempt status. Werfel will also have to explain his finding that there was no purposeful wrongdoing at the IRS, simply mismanagement. This week's abortion battle is far from over in Texas. Governor Rick Perry has called a second special legislative session to give the Republican-controlled state House another shot at passing abortion restrictions. The restrictions on abortion were blocked by a filibuster from Senator Wendy Davis, but political observers say they will likely pass when that special session begins July 1st. Opponents say the measures could close nearly all abortion clinics in the Lone Star State. Walmart is the latest company to cut ties with celebrity chef Paula Deen. Deen has been under fire since she admitted in a legal deposition that she had used racist language in the past. But she says she's not a racist. She defended herself during a tearful interview on NBC's Today Show.
I've had wonderful support, and I tell you what, if there's anyone out there that has never said something that they wish they could take back, if you're out there, please pick up that stone and throw it so hard in my head that it kills me. Please, I want to meet you.
Deen has supporters including former Food Network star winner Aaron McCargo Jr., who is an African American. On Facebook, he called her a friend, saying, "Paula has always been very helpful and supportive throughout my career. We're all human and we should never be quick to judge anyone." Also, author Anne Rice came to Deen's defense, writing on Facebook, "Wow, this looks like a crucifixion. I may be wrong, but aren't we becoming something of a lynch mob culture?" Coming up, from Iran's new president to the U.S. arming Syrian rebels, how will Israel respond to the new challenges in the Middle East? Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi is appealing for calm in the face of protests on the anniversary of the 2011 revolution. In a TV address, Morsi admitted he's made mistakes and promised to give political opponents and minorities more say in governing. He's holding a forum today to discuss new constitutional amendments and a, quote, national reconciliation. Critics of his regime say he has given too much power to radical Islamists, pushed through unpopular constitutional amendments, and tried to grab even more power. The military has protected his government, but now leaders are saying that if protests get out of hand, they may be forced to take control. Well, we've seen some major developments in the Middle East in the last couple of weeks. Iran has elected a new president who some hail as a moderate, willing to work with the international community. Also, the U.S. announced it will begin arming Syrian rebels in the war against Bashar al-Assad. Both developments have serious implications for the state of Israel. And joining us now for more to offer her insight from the region is CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl. Well, Julie, let's start with Iran. How do you think the Obama administration will react to this new president? Will this mean more delay about Iran's nuclear program?
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be another delay. I'm sure the Obama administration will likely want to talk with him. He says he wants to talk. That's the only, solution for the nuclear crisis. But it's probably not going to bear any fruit. There's no such thing as a moderate in Iran, really. Mm-hmm. And this isn't going to be a dramatic change in their nuclear policy.
Wow. What are the implications for Israel? Is the window closing for a first strike to take out Iran's nuclear power?
It is closing. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, and, it could begin to sound like white noise, like, oh, Iran's getting a nuclear weapon. We talk about it again and again. But the point is they are getting closer and closer. As one analyst said, they don't just want one nuclear bomb. They want a nuclear arsenal. They want lots of bombs. And that could really be, treacherous for not just for Israel, for the Middle East, for Europe, even for the United States. And yes, the window is closing for a first strike.
Indeed it is. Now, the Obama administration announced that it is going to arm the Syrian rebels. Give us your thoughts on the ramifications for Israel if that happens.
Well, it's not good. I mean, Assad is a dictator. He's, he hasn't been a good ruler for his people. He's been a brutal dictator. We've seen, almost 100,000 people killed in the last few years. But, the rebels are mostly jihadists, Islamists. And they've already said that, they're just starting with Assad. They're going to go on to Lebanon, and they're going to move into Israel. So, yeah, either one is not a good implication. I know Israelis have basically said, just let them fight it out. We'll just let them see who wins, and we'll deal with it then. So it's not exactly a good thing for Israel.
Syrian Christians are speaking out. They say the U.S. is helping militant Islamists, as you just said, turning Syria into an Islamic state. What's behind their fears?
Well, Bashar Assad, even though he was wicked, he did protect minorities, and the Christians lived relatively peacefully in that country. Now, with the jihadists, first of all, they see them allied with Bashar Assad. So that's already against them. But also, Christians don't exactly have a good situation in Islamic countries. So, for them, it's I would be afraid too.
Indeed. Real quickly, what do you see happening in Egypt with Morsi, and how could it affect Israel?
Well, the stronger the Islamists get there, the more they've already said they want to do away with the treaty between Israel and Egypt. So, that definitely would have ramifications for Israel. Morsi has said no, he doesn't want to do away with the treaty, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good situation there. Also on the border, I mean, it's already already had some attacks, and it's not good in the Sinai Desert. A lot of radical activity going on there.
Very tense indeed. Julie Stahl, as always, thank you so much for your insight. Good to see you on this side of the world.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you for being here. Still to come, secret believers, Christians from several nations of the former Soviet Union came together recently. We were there to witness this once-in-a-lifetime event. In many countries, you can be executed for believing in Jesus. Christians there have to be cautious about sharing their faith. But last winter, George Thomas got exclusive access to a secret gathering of believers in a former Soviet republic. We've disguised their names and identities to protect their lives.
The setting could not have been more ideal.
This is a beautiful location. 70% of the country is mountainous. Locals call it the second Switzerland of Asia.
This is the mountains of Kyrgyzstan.
Our goal was to find a safe place away from the city to not draw attention of the authorities.
For a few days, Vitali and a handful of Christians gathered in this secluded villa tucked away in the mountains, about a 2-hour drive outside the capital city, Bishkek.
We worship, pray, and strategize how to effectively share the love of Christ in our countries.
CBN News cannot show you their faces or reveal their real names for security reasons. In this room are secret believers from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan, all former Soviet republics in Central Asia, experiencing a rising tide of hostilities against believers. All are members of a Christian ministry that's reaching young people in the former Soviet Union.
It is practically impossible to openly share about Jesus Christ. Doing so will get you beaten, arrested, or killed.
Marat is a youth leader from Uzbekistan. Last year was a difficult year for you.
Fortunately, I wasn't arrested, but I was repeatedly interrogated by secret police, accused of gathering people in my house. They said that what I was doing is illegal.
He runs an informal Christian school training Uzbek leaders.
The pressure is unrelenting. You can't relax. You're constantly under stress. You cannot trust anyone because you don't know if they'll turn you in or accuse you of proselytizing.
Daoud is from Kazakhstan, the largest of the 5 Central Asian countries. There were no Kazakh Christians back in 1990. Today, however, there are 15,000, but strict religion laws make it very difficult for churches to register.
According to our law, you cannot attend church until you are 18 years old. That means we cannot hold youth meetings, discipleship classes, or Bible study.
Ferouz is from Tajikistan. This is home video of his secret house church smuggled out of the country and obtained exclusively by CBN News. The meetings are small and typically held in a believer's home.
The people in this video know exactly what's at stake. Our parents taught us from childhood that one day we may have to sacrifice our lives.
7 million people live in Tajikistan. 1,000 of them are Christian.
Each life counts. God says, be thankful every day, rejoice in every soul that comes into heaven. That's what keeps us going, one life at a time.
Religious freedom exists in all 5 countries under the Constitution, but barely. While Islam is the dominant religion, a more radical expression is taking root in Central Asia. Dmitry Kabak is a human rights lawyer in Bishkek. He says fear of radicalism has led governments to adopt laws controlling all religions, including Islam and Christianity.
Groups from Saudi, Turkey, and elsewhere come in with a different interpretation and practice of Islam. That worries the authorities. Some of the radical groups have engaged in terrorist activities.
Oleg works in remote villages of Kyrgyzstan. He remembers what it was like spiritually soon after the fall of the Soviet Union.
There was a lot of freedom in the 90s. People could openly share the gospel. But eventually Islam started to make a move and gain influence.
Up here in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, the horse is another popular mode of transportation, especially to get around some of these tough terrains and these steep hills. You know, for the believers, this is a spiritual oasis because it's an opportunity to get away from the almost a daily routine harassment and persecution from the authorities and to come together in a safe place, a beautiful place, and to get spiritually energized.
The beauty, the backdrop, the scenery, what a wonderful distraction from our daily challenges. To see Kyrgyz, Uzbek, Kazakh, and Tajik believers in the same place at one time is so encouraging. We draw strength from each other. We know we're not in this spiritual battle alone.
Encouraged, refreshed, and re-energized, the believers are back home now and uncertain of the days ahead. Yet they stand boldly convinced of a calling to make the name of Jesus Christ known, no matter the cost. George Thomas, CBN News, somewhere in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan.
Finally today, want to see Israel through the eyes of Jesus? There's an app for that. It is called Archetype, a reality program designed by archaeologists. All you do is hold your phone up in front of an historic site. The original structure will suddenly appear on the screen. For instance, a tourist can hold up their phone in front of the Dome of the Rock and watch it transform into the Jewish holy site of the Second Temple. Creators say they hope to develop the app for other historic sites around the world. That is amazing. Indeed it is. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of the CBN News Channel. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a great day, everybody.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.